Yesterday, I discussed with you the parsha that the Jewish farmer recites when he brings the bikurim, the first fruits to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Kohen. Then the parsha that immediately succeeds that parsha also has to do with saying, with reciting something. And that parsha is called Vidui Maaser. Vidui, it's a confession that the person makes when he gives the Maaser. Now, there are three forms of Maaser. There's really about four forms. So there's Maaser Rishon, which was given to the Levi. So a person had, let's say he has 100 bushels of grain, and he has to give to the Levi 10%. So that's 10 bushels. Then there also is the fact that he had to give truma to the Kohen. But the truma can be given before, and truma has no amount, no set amount. The Gemara says, "Chita achat poteret et akri." You give one grain, and that's it. And now, naturally, one grain is pretty cheap of you. It's not nice. So the Gemara attempted to establish suggestions, parameters instituted by the Rabbanan, instituted by the rabbis. So they said that if a person is generous, he would give a 40th, which is 2.5%. And if he was not so generous, then he would give a 60th. And the average person gave a 50th, which was 2%. So let's take the average person. So 10 bushels went to the Levi and 2 bushels went to the Kohen. He's left with 88 bushels. Then there's a din of Meiser Sheni. Every year, another Meiser has to be brought up to Yerushalayim, and it has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. In the Machlekes, where from the Posek it looks like it would have to be within the precincts of the Beit HaMikdash, but that's not the way the Gemara interprets it. Anywhere in Yerushalayim. So then the question is, where is Yerushalayim? So at the time that Yerushalayim was a completely walled city, so it was relatively easy to determine where Yerushalayim is. But in our time, Yerushalayim has expanded enormously. Not only that, at the time of David HaMelech and in Bayis Rishon, Yerushalayim ran south to north. In other words, Ir David, the Ophel, that was in the south of the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash stood in the northern part, and the city ran that way. The city began to expand at the time of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, again in Bayis Rishon, and then it expanded west. And we have remnants of the wall of Chizkiyahu that can be seen at the edge of the Jewish quarter in the old city. So then part of it was west to east. It was like a dalet. It was north-south and west-east. The Gemara calls it a gamma from the gamma rays. Then in Bayis Sheni, when Ezra returned, so for various reasons they did not build the city north-south anymore. They built it almost exclusively east-west. And so that therefore that was the precinct. Those were the precincts of the city. The city was far bigger in Bayit Sheni than it was in Bayit Rishon. So the borders of Yerushalayim were clear. Today it is less clear. You have municipal borders, but then you have Greater Jerusalem, and where does it begin and where does it end is not clear. So the nafkamina that we have is regarding Purim, the Megillah, whether or not our Purim is on the 15th day of Adar, Shushan Purim, or whether it's on the 14th day of Adar. And it's interesting how that halacha has developed, because the Gemara says, Roa v'nireh, Korav Roa v'nireh. It's close, and you could see, and it could be seen. What could you see? So most of the Mefarshim say you could see the Beis Hamikdash. But others say you could see Yerushalayim. That would be enough. So like today, for instance, Har Nof. So you see it from afar on the highway, right? Of course, if you have your eyes on the highway, you're not supposed to look at it, but you could see it from afar. And therefore, there were Shitas that held that until Motzah was Yerushalayim as far as Purim was concerned. But certainly the tradition was that somehow Motzah is the entrance to Yerushalayim. And the tradition in Jerusalem is that when they wanted to welcome an important personage to Yerushalayim, they all came out as far as Motzah to be able to welcome that person.
Shimon HaTzadik.
Huh?
Shimon HaTzadik did it.
Shimon HaTzadik did it, and that became the tradition always that's where it is. Now Motzah today it's a distance from Yerushalayim, but it doesn't hold itself to be part of Yerushalayim today. Maybe because it's a city unto itself, a village unto itself. So all of this. But anyway, the Meiser Sheni had to be brought to Yerushalayim and eaten in the precincts of Yerushalayim. If a person was unable to bring up the fruits, or if the grain and the fruit would spoil, or it was too large an amount, so then he exchanged it for money. V'samta kesef biyodecha. You'll put the money in your hands, and you bring the money to Yerushalayim. And the money in Yerushalayim had to be spent in Yerushalayim for food that the person would eat in Yerushalayim with the Meiser Sheni. So the Kedusha, the Meiser Sheni, is transferred to the money. There's a famous Chassidish interpretation that they say in the name of the Koshnitzer Magid. Said, Voyakim, Yirchak Mimcha Aderech. Yerushalayim is too far. Jews can't go. So we don't understand it anymore, Baruch Hashem, because everybody can go. But you have to realize that for centuries on end they couldn't go. So Yirchak Mimcha Aderech, it was too far for us. So it said, V'samto HaKesef Biyodecha. So he said, Kesef is Miloshan Kisufim. The longing you should at least have. You should have the desire. That should remain with you. And not just, to say, I can't go, so forget it. It doesn't mean anything. And really, it was the longing that enabled us to return here and to accomplish, thank God, what has been accomplished. So that was Meiser Sheni. And so the Meiser Sheni was to be consumed in Yerushalayim. Now, the Meiser Sheni was the first and second year of the Meiser. Meiser cycle was 3 years. The third year of the Meiser cycle was Meiseroni, which, as the name indicates, was a percentage that was given to the poor. That says Lager, Layosom, Almona. So that's in the Vidui Meiser that the person says, Begam Nasati, La Levi, Lager, Layosom, Almona, Kasher Tzivisoni. That I have distributed from what I have to those who are needy, as you have commanded me. So the Meforshim say, Kasher Tzivisoni, as you have commanded me, that we do not give out of compassion. Compassion is a popular phrase in the world, but people who give out of compassion usually don't give. I saw a statistic of all the great people who are running for president of the United States. No, none of them give anything to charity. Richard Nixon gave $180 to the Red Cross.
Because they think that they need charity.
Right? No, so they, it's not, it's compassion. So I have compassion on you, but I don't have to give anything. Kasher Tzivisoni, but if it's a commandment, so even if I don't have compassion, I have to give. I have to somehow share it.
How much is
Machzus shekel?
Maaser Sheni.
Meiser Sheni is also a flexible amount. It's not 10%. And so from the idea of Meiseroni, we come to the idea of Maser Ksofim, to give a percentage of one's income, 10% of one's income, to charity.
But this is each year, right?
Each year, not yet, but the concept is based on the fact that there is a mitzvah of Meiseroni, so now there's a mitzvah of Meiser Ksofim. And so that a person has to be able to give Meiser. The question, so then there are various halachas, money that, is it salary money? Is it, what about unearned income? All sorts of shilas arise. But basically, it is what a person earns. It's not a wealth tax. It's not meiser from your wealth, like from your assets, so to speak. But it's meiser from income. And that became the standard by Klal Yisrael throughout all the generations. And that's the idea that always exists, that people give. Now, in our time, giving has become very organized. There are institutions, the government recognized amutot, all sorts of things. But in halacha, giving is really giving to individuals, giving straight to the needy, to the poor, to the people that annoy us every morning here. And so that becomes really that's the highest form. And if the person is a Talmid Chacham, so then the Talmid Chacham is kodem to everybody else. in the support of it. So there are these ideas and gradations that exist. But the basic idea is contained here in this week's Parsha, in the Vidui Meiser, that the Jew recites when he brings the Meiser to the Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash, Omer Hatzak Arer Baruch Hu L'Zakav Yisrael, V'fircha Chirbo Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar, Adonai Chafetz Aman Tzidko Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.
Amen.